and has meaning. Each moment is meant to be experienced and cherished. Welcome to Anxiety Simplified Podcast. I'm Joanne Williams, and I'm going to share ways to refocus this anxiety energy to a more productive and effective way to go through life. You already have all the tools. I'll just remind you how to use them. We'll be tuning into your own power to choose and find more joy and peace. Let's get started remembering this wisdom.
Hi, Joanne Williams here, Anxiety Simplified. And today's podcast is about emotions. 3 keys you never knew about emotions and how emotions in stress can kill you or can help your immune system and health. It's all about our response to it. So today's summary of the show is about emotions and how to use them to your advantage. Once you've learned how to use them, not let them abuse you by feeling out of control, but understanding, then you can use them to your advantage and feel better. We're going to have an interview with Dr. Ed Daube, the Emotions Doctor. And questions for today from Facebook. How can I get rid of having emotions? How can I change my emotions? All right. So to start, we can have a physical response to our emotions as well. Ever have a pit in your stomach before a meeting or meeting somebody new or a date, or maybe before a big speech? Or how about migraines? So we have not only emotional reactions like fear, shame, that can trigger physical responses, like even diarrhea. Yuck. But true. A doctor once told me that 85% of the patients he sees, the issues are stress related. Is stress an emotional reaction to a situation? Yes. So would it be better to learn how to manage them instead of just letting your mind, emotional body just react in a physical way? Because this comes from your emotional brain, which is a lower part of your brain that was formed when you're just like 6 months old. Your higher part of your brain, or frontal cortex, or the rational brain, isn't even started to form until age 12 to 25 to 35. So if we have things happen to us before age 12, we have no cognitive or way to think about it in a way to make sense out of it. It happens and we just emotionally respond. And did anything happen to you before age 12? Emotionally, that you might remember? Bullied at school, God forbid, physical, sexual abuse, or anything you can imagine before age 12. We all have something that has happened emotionally, and this leaves us feeling like a child to try to figure out what's happening. And when we remember it, or a scenario that triggers us to remember it, then we still feel like that little child trying to figure something out because we didn't have the cognitive ability to figure it out. But now you do. But no one taught us any skills on how to figure it out. So no wonder 58% of the marriages fail, or there is so much anxiety or depression out there. It's upwards to 50% right now in America. We need to learn some skills to manage our emotional responses. Now you're going to know what to do. And even at age 90, you can use these skills to help you. That even when you felt like that child, to process this emotion. But now you can do it with the skills of an adult. But you must be kind to that little self that helped you survive without skills. Thank him or her, that little self, for all that he or she has done for you. It is not that hard to learn how to manage your emotions, but you will need to become aware of what is happening emotionally and not just push them away. Is that your habit? Oh, push them away. I don't want to feel it. Oh, it hurts too much. But you're going to learn how to listen to your emotions as your internal guidance system. My explanation of why we have emotions is that emotions are just signals, or they are just giving us information to use to make a decision. So when there is a consistent emotion like anxiety about fearing a situation or worrying about consistent situations like flying, elevators, or heights, or overwhelmed in situations that are coming from that young child's version from emotions. So understand that emotions are just trying to give you information so that you can make a better decision about a life situation, flying, job, speech. If its only purpose, you could understand it's not there to torture you or punish you. It's just to give you information. It does not make you weak to have information. So you've been shoveled a bunch of you know what about emotions, and I don't know anybody that teaches it like this. So listen to what I'm saying here and use your internal guidance system as one piece of the information puzzle and how it makes you feel as one half, and what you are thinking about that decision is the other half of the puzzle. All emotions have their own message. Anger is to say no. It's a boundary. Please don't do that again. You can do it with a smile. It is not rage or abuse. It is standing up for yourself with a no. Or guilt. Am I doing something wrong against my morals and value when you have your hand in the cookie jar? When your mom just said, don't, we're having supper in a minute. You're supposed to feel something when you're doing something wrong. But this is a tricky one because some religions and parenting has been done with guilt to control us. This one, we may need to take a second step to look at it and ask, did I really do something wrong against my morals and values here? Or am I just using it to punish myself like my family did? Or religion told me I should feel guilty for everything, when you really just want to look at it. Am I using this right now only because somebody else used it on me and I'm really, truly not doing anything wrong, but I have that constant guilt? That can go into depression. So you got to catch this one. Am I doing something wrong? No, I'm not doing anything wrong to tell somebody how I feel. Then why do I feel guilty? Because it was used on me. All right, no. So stop. I cannot continue this feeling when I am not doing anything wrong. So you have to work with yourself on that one. Shame is a much deeper guilt that has gone maybe into about your character of being bad as a child or bad person or worthless. Alcoholism or drug abuse, this is a lot of times one of the deeper issues in that, and you may need some special help or programs until you can love yourself the way you are, no matter what. Love yourself? Yeah. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Or sadness. And sadness is just telling you want to connect with someone. Again, it doesn't have to be this big whatever. It is just about wanting to connect. And we hardly talk about happy as our natural state. There are four main emotions when I worked with children in therapy. This is the way I said it. There's happy, sad, mad, or scared? Which one do you feel? So you may want to just kind of keep this simple and just start to be aware. Am I happy? Am I mad? Am I sad? Am I scared? And then go back to the definitions and ask, okay, now what do I do? And then you want to go to step 2. And I've done a whole program or workbook that you can get for free on anxietysimplified.net, and it's called the A.C.T method. The A is about awareness, but it will take you through these steps to focus your thoughts and your emotions back towards what it is you really want more of in your life, to build the skills to manage these emotions. And I want to answer the question, how do I get rid of emotions? And I hope you mean just change them. You never want to get rid of them. This is your emotional guidance system, or like your GPS in your car. It helps you to get where you want to go in your life when you listen to what the message is. Emotions are the same, and you would never want to get rid of them again. And they're half your brain. So one side is logic, one side is emotional. So maybe the better question is, how can I change my emotions? Become aware of what you are thinking that creates the emotional response. If you are thinking, I'm going to die if I go on this plane, of course you're going to be afraid. I mean, again, they're connected, your thoughts with your feelings. But if you can reassure that emotional child inside you feeling this, because she had or he had no way to figure this out in his little brain. It wasn't developed yet. And when you can combine that thought, I'm okay, I'll be okay, and have that emotional part of you calm down, that little child. When you reassure a child, they do calm down. That's what they're looking for. And that's what your brain is trying to tell, reassure me, please, reassure me. And when it does, and when you feel reassured and recognize that I'm the one causing the fear here, or that anxiety, with my own thinking, connect the two things and you can change your life. My A.C.T method, the A is begin to be aware of what you are thinking in that situation, maybe way before you even go on the plane. Oh my God, I am thinking, oh, it's going to crash. Oh my God, there's a whatever, whatever, whatever. You'll hear it. And that's when you want to connect it. You hear the emotion, I'm going to die, or I'm fearful. Okay. So once you start, the C is connect these thoughts with the emotion to reassure it. All right, thought, that's a possibility. Yes, I could die, but what is really the probability? We know that driving on the roads are more dangerous. So self, you're going to be okay. A little self, I'll take care of you. I'm reassuring you. I'm big now. I can help. And then you can almost feel that melting. I know he's going to take care of me. I can trust myself. The T is train of the A.C.T. Train your brain to continue with this calmed thought and feeling while you practice it. You got to practice. And there will be more on the A.C.T method and even a webinar to help you truly feel in control of your own thoughts and feelings. You can do this. Next, we have an interview with Dr. Ed Daube, the Emotions Doctor. And he's our guest today and is going to explain how he uses emotions. And he wrote a book, How to Use Emotions as Tools, self-help guide to controlling your life, not your emotions. And you can find his information at his blog, theemotionsdoctor.com. So please check him out and listen to our interview together, talking about ways to really use emotions as tools. Well, welcome everybody today. This is Joanne Williams, Anxiety Simplified. And you know you can always find us at anxietysimplified.net. But today I have the pleasure to be as a special guest, Ed Daube, who is the Emotions Doctor. So I'm excited to talk with him. He is a retired professor of psychology at the University of Laverne in Southern California and worked 32 years as a senior psychologist with the juvenile division at the California Department of Corrections facilities with women. And so I'm really excited to talk with him because he's actually or the author of 2 books, and both which are Amazon bestsellers. Beyond Anger Management, Master Your Anger as a Strategic Tool. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And then the one we're going to talk more about today is emotions as a tool, as tools, emotions as tools, a self-help guide to controlling your life, not your emotions. So I'm really excited. I'm going to kind of give this over for a few minutes to Ed and have him just share a little bit about his book and how, because we always talk about tools, Ed. So I'm really excited for you to talk a little bit about the tools you can offer to our listeners today. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Joanne, for having me. Yeah, let me give you just a little bit of background on how I arrived at the idea of emotions as tools. When I started working with the young women at the correctional institution, I was fresh out of graduate school, and my language was such that I couldn't communicate with these young women. I was taught a professional language, if you will, or clinical language, and they just didn't understand it. And I also was working with the correctional staff who were really jaded when it came to the idea of emotions. They didn't like them. They thought they were messy. And the young women didn't like the emotions either because it ended up with them hurting themselves or hurting somebody else. So I had to develop a model which the young women could understand and the correctional staff could understand. And I came up with the idea that emotions are just tools. They're tools like any other tool. If you've used a cell phone, that's a tool. You learn how to use it. If you've used a remote control, that's a tool. You learn how to use that. The correctional staff had their tools, whether it was their batons or mace or their ability to communicate. They're just tools. So what happens with people is they look at anxiety, and anxiety is a future-based emotion that we'll talk about here in a minute, and it tends to overwhelm them. And they say, "Oh, these emotions, I don't know what to do with them. I don't know how to I don't know how to use them. They just take over." Well, when you look at emotions as tools, the question then becomes, okay, what does the tool or the emotion of anxiety tell me, and how can I master it? And that's where my model of emotions as tools come in. So let's take a look at anxiety. The nature of anxiety, the message is that it's a future-based emotion. And what it says is, I see something down the road at some point in the future that may represent a threat to me. Now, if I understand that, then I can say, okay, I'm anxious. What do I do now? And if it's a tool, you have 4 steps for dealing with this tool. Again, let me make the idea that if you want to learn how to use your cell phone, you say, okay, what do I want it to do? I want to make calls with it. How do I do that? Which buttons do I push? Okay, anxiety is a tool. So when you begin to experience anxiety, you need to understand, your listener, how does your listener experience anxiety in their body? Do they suddenly get flushed? Do they suddenly get nervous? Do their thoughts race? Whatever it is, they identify that, okay, I'm anxious. Now they can go into a 4-step process. The way to remember that is SAPA, P as in Paul, a 4-step process for dealing with anxiety. The first step is to stop. And the reason why you do that is because that gives you a moment of time to separate yourself from the anxiety so that it doesn't take over. So you stop and you take a deep breath. The deep breath then helps to relax you. Once you've taken your deep breath, now then you go to the second step, which is to assess or ask yourself some questions. What is really going on here? What is the nature of the threat? How real is the threat? Is it something that might not happen? Is it something that will happen? And when you get your answers to that, you go to the third step, which then is to plan. Okay, I now know that I'm concerned. My students would say, I'm really worried about the upcoming exam, doctor. What do I do? Okay, that's the future threat. So look at the threat. What is the nature of the threat? It's real. That exam's coming. So what's my plan? I need to study. So now I make a plan. And step 4, which is the other A, which is to take action based on that plan. So once you understand that, and there are many ways for dealing with anxiety, this is just one, but it's understanding that it's a tool. Once you understand that, now you can master it and you can get it to work for you. And the way you do that, Joanne, is to say, okay, I got all this energy. I'm all nervous about this upcoming exam. I'm nervous about this upcoming interview at my work. I'm nervous about this event that's coming up where I have to give a talk. Or maybe, who knows, maybe I need to talk to my husband about something that we need to talk about. That's a future event. So I'm now energized. I'm now going to use that energy of my anxiety to motivate me to make my plan and carry it out. That, by the way, is using anxiety as eustress, EUSTRESS. The issue with anxiety and why most people don't like it is because they experience anxiety as distress, DISSTRESS. That's where anxiety takes over. It gets us all nervous, all upset, all anxious, and we don't take any action at all because we're so anxious about it. So at that point, the anxiety becomes overwhelming, and we say, oh, the heck with it, I can't do anything about it, and we just give up. So I'm saying use anxiety and the energy that it gives you as eustress to then help you make a plan and take action on that plan. Does that make sense?
Oh, it sure does. Yeah, and it's interesting. I think we're talking the same language. My listeners may have heard something similar. I like, though, now that EU stress. Where did you get that word? That's a very interesting word.
I didn't make it up. It's in the literature.
Really?
I can't give you the exact reference to it, but it's not mine. I wish it were because I really like it. But they can Google it.
Yeah, well, the other thing, I mean, the EU stress, I mean, you just said use, U-S-E, and I'm thinking, I think that should be U-S-E stress, because it's like use the stress or use the anxiety to motivate you.
Yep.
So I like that kind of word use that you have here to help us remember, some of these steps, because like you said, sometimes our brain kind of freezes up and doesn't know what to do. And if you can stop, breathe, then you can get out of that emotional brain and into that thinking brain.
Exactly. And let me give your listeners a definition of stress that will also be helpful to them. Now, stress is where expectations do not equal reality. Now, if you understand that this is stress, this gives you another way to alleviate the stress that you're experiencing. Because if you're stressed out, it's because what you expect to happen in the future doesn't match, or in the present, doesn't match what's actually happening. So you basically have a couple of choices. You either change what you expect to happen, or you change how you view what is happening.
That's nice.
So if I'm facing a situation where I need to go and I need to talk to my boss because I want a raise. So and I'm all stressed out about it. I'm anxious. Now, I can go through those 4 steps we talked about, or I can say, wait a minute. When I listened to Joanne's podcast, Dr. Daube said something about expectations in reality. Oh, I remember what it was. So what do I expect to happen? What I expect to happen is my boss is going to look at me and he's going to say, really? You're asking for a raise? Come on. Well, that may happen, but it also may not. He may say, geez, I'm really glad you brought it up because I've been thinking about calling you into my office and you've been doing a good job. So it could go either way. So then you change the expectation to, I'm going to wait and see what happens. Now there's no stress, or the stress is reduced because your expectation is more in line with what may happen, which is the reality. And so it's lined up, so your stress gets reduced. Or the other side of that is you go into it and your expectation is that the boss is going to be pretty hard on you, and you look, that's your reality now. So now you have to say, okay, I need to change what's going on here. I need to change the reality. And I do that by talking to the boss, by asking questions, by presenting my case, whatever it happens to be. So if you understand that stress is where expectations don't match reality, you can either change how you perceive what's going on, or you can change what you expect to happen.
Beautiful. And either way, you're taking an action to get prepared.
Yes.
And I think that's the key I really hear in this, and that's what I say too. Anxiety is to get us prepared, and these thoughts that we have, and they may come from all kinds of different places, way in the back of our lives or mind or whatever. When I look at them or I look at my worries, 99% of them never happen. And
exactly.
So that changing that expectation, or seeing that really doesn't have to equal reality, can be a really helpful tool to I'll tell you Wayne Dyer saying that I just love. I don't know if you remember Wayne Dyer, but
I do.
And he said, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. And
exactly.
So that's kind of a little bit of what I'm hearing you here with that tool. That's a great one. Oh, thanks. I think people can really use that.
That's exactly correct. And if they understand that going into this, that most of the time what they are concerned will happen doesn't happen, then they don't have to worry about it. And if they also understand that they've prepared themselves for what might take place, they've got it covered on both ends of it. If it goes the way that I don't want it to, I'm prepared. If it doesn't go that way, great. Either way, I come out ahead.
Yeah, I like that. And I think sometimes, number one kind of anxiety or fear can be public speaking. And, that when I don't mean to laugh, but I've heard so many versions of this with clients that, even, I'm afraid my pants will fall down. Or, some really kind of crazy thoughts that they have of the possibilities of what might happen, and using that little tool, to change it around. When have my pants ever fallen down? Like kind of confronting your own thoughts at that moment, maybe with the stop here and look at this, because really, where did that one come from? But we all know that sometimes these things can kind of come out of the blue, and you kind of do want to shake your head and go, what? But we think these things. We truly do.
Exactly. And the question to ask then in that situation is, what if the worst possible thing happens and my pants do fall down? Now, if that happens, can I survive it? And if the answer is yes, I can survive it, then I don't need to be overly concerned about it. Now, interestingly enough, when I first, the reason why I started teaching is because I was afraid of public speaking. And so I went and I took a job as a professor at this university. And when I started out, I was terrible. But as I did it more, I got better at it. But I realized that I want to learn to public speak, and I'm just going to have to jump in and do it. And fortunately, the worst that I expected didn't happen. The worst that happened is I got some bad reviews from some students that said, boy, this guy's not really good. And I wasn't.
But who is the first time you do something? You can
exactly
expect that. Now that is in reality. We usually have to practice something several times. So that again is, what is your reality about this and that expectation? Because that's being pretty hard on yourself to expect the first time you get up there that you're perfect. And perfection, I think, is another issue about anxiety, that truly in this life, there is nothing perfect except imperfection, and expecting too much of ourselves, I think, sometimes puts that pressure. And I'm sure as a teacher or with students, that, to me was always an issue of, thinking you have to have, it's a must you do, these things that are just so insistent and judgmental, really.
Yes.
What is your
And
thought on that?
well, I've got an important thought for your listeners. What tends to happen with everybody, including me at times, is that our self-talk tends to be very often mean and destructive. Now, here's how you handle self-talk. I mean, there are a number of things with self-talk in terms of what we tell ourselves and how to change it. But here's the most important thing to keep in mind. If other people said to you the things you say to yourself, how long would you listen to them? And the answer is not very long. So if you understand that, then you can take that and you can come back to your own things and say, wait a minute, I'm being really overly critical about myself. And if somebody else said this to me, I would really question it. So, I'm going to question me telling me this. And when you do that, you like that. And when you do this, that helps you get past the negative self-talk.
Another way I say it, when you look in the mirror in the morning, what do you hear? And would you say that to your friend? And if you would not say that to your friend, do you really want to be saying that to yourself? Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I think we have to kind of monitor our own self-talk.
Oh, absolutely. And part of the reason we have to do that, Joanne, is that whatever we tell ourselves, we take that as absolutely true. We do not question it and we do not filter it. When somebody else tells us, we question it, we filter it, we ask about it. When we tell ourselves, we don't. So we need to take a look at what we're telling ourselves. And either you can do it your way, which is to say, would you tell somebody else that? Or you can do what I'm suggesting, which is if somebody else told me this, how long would I put up with it? Either way will work.
I know. And I don't think we really realize how much negative, I'll call it, self-talk that we really do have. And sometimes those can be old voices, of our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, even some teachers maybe. And it does affect us. And I think it's time we kind of take responsibility for our own self-talk and say, stop. That is not okay. And sometimes we almost need to scold ourselves. And really, did I really said that to myself? Because you know how good it feels to feel encouraged and how we could encourage ourselves, especially today. I just feel like this social media and pressure, I'll call it, I think it can be really hard on people's self-esteem, and it's important we have some place to go to build ourselves up.
I totally agree. This social media, I'm sure glad that my kids are growing now because I wouldn't want them to have to deal with the kind of stuff that's going on social media. And the destructive stuff about social media is people tend to say, oh, look at that. So-and-so is saying, oh, they've made all this money or they're doing all this and they're all successful. Well, maybe, or maybe that's just what they're saying. So you can't believe everything you see on social media. And sometimes you just have to say, hey, I'm not going to do it. And I'll give you an example, not with social media, but I find I have been up to this point almost a religious consumer, probably a bad word, but a steady consumer, a steady consumer of news. I like to know what's going on. So I watch the news the national news, and I watch some of the commentators. And I finally got to the point where I realized, I'm listening to this person, and this person is what they're saying is absolutely correct, but I'm getting anxious listening to it. Do I really need that much information? And I finally decided, you know what? No, I don't. If it's important, I will get it. I'll get it in the newspaper, or I'll get it on the national news, but I don't need to listen to stuff that I'm getting anxious about because I can't impact it. I can't change it. So I cut back on the amount of stuff I watch. And there's less anxiety because it wasn't healthy for me.
And that's even, I think, a good one of your stop. When
Exactly.
you start to be aware of the impact in your body that you're saying, if you're noticing it or just getting jittery or whatever it is, it's affecting you. And it's not in a positive way. And to be able to notice that is kind of what I'm hearing you say. Increase your awareness of
Yes.
what is affecting you, whether it is social media, if it is television, or even these gamers kind of games, if that's getting you so sorry, my grandchildren, I'm going to talk about you. But what I see with these video games, I can't even talk to them when they're playing these games and they get so agitated. And I have 1 minute. I have 1 minute. I have 1 minute. So hurry up. Say whatever you're going to say. Because and I could see them getting so wound up. Their friend's going to go 1 minute or they're going to kill me, in the game, and it's like they are getting so wound up if they can't keep playing that game. I have to say to my daughter, really? Is this a good thing for the kids to be doing? Again, this is from a grandmother's perspective, listening and seeing their kids' reactions
Yep.
playing these games. And I don't see at times that it's that healthy for them emotionally.
I agree. And we've just started in the grandparents game. I now have a grandson who's 1 year old. My first, yes, it's excited. We're going to go visit him next week.
Oh,
He's up in
congratulations.
Alaska. So, but in any event, what I'm saying is that what for me, I experience anxiety in the pit of my stomach. It begins to churn, and that's how I know I'm anxious. Other people, it might be they tense up or they get a headache. So you need to know how you experience anxiety in your own body. And that's what I did. I was experiencing this churning in my stomach, and I stopped with the news programs, and I said, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so once I stopped, then I assessed that watching the news program was getting to me because I couldn't do anything about it. And then I made a plan, which was to not watch the news programs every day, and I turned off the recording. So that's exactly how it works. But first, it starts with self-awareness and knowing what it is in your body that alerts you to the fact that you're experiencing anxiety. Then you can go through the 4-step process.
Yeah, that's good because, I don't know that a lot of people really talk about our bodies, reaction. And I think a lot of people do feel it in their stomach or migraines or even in their, IBS. There can be a lot of kind of physical
Yep.
reactions to constant kind of never ending anxieties. And it is really important. I like that to notice. It's just a notice what is going on for you. Where does it start?
Right. And let me quickly put that into perspective about how the emotional process works so your listeners understand it. The way it works is we are since we've lived in caves as way back when, the only thing we really had that helped us survive as a species was our emotions and also our intellect. We don't have sharp teeth or sharp claws. So we developed a way that we constantly, and your listeners do too, you're constantly scanning your environment for threat. That you've done since your ancestor lived in caves. You can't do anything about that. Once you perceive a threat, and it's subconscious, once you perceive a threat, your amygdala, which is the emotional center in the brain, goes into action and it sends a fast track message to your body. That's your emotional reaction. And because that happens so quickly, people begin to feel I can't do anything about my emotions. They happen to me. No, the initial reaction happens to you. Now, at the same time, a slower track message goes to your cerebral cortex, which is the thinking part of your brain, which then gives you the opportunity to look at what's going on, assess it, and then choose how you want to respond. And where the disconnect is for most people is they confuse that reaction, which is subconscious, with the ability to respond, which is very much a choice. So now that your listeners understand that, they won't be surprised when this anxiety suddenly overtakes and overwhelms them. Yeah, that's going to happen. It's natural. The next step is to stop, take a breath, which then enables you to engage the thinking part of your brain. So now you have a choice as to how you want to respond. That's how it all fits together.
Beautiful. Yeah, and it is really important that I think there is a better understanding about how our body and brain work together, and emotions, and even our spiritual side of, ways to really connect in with all of it, because it's all important.
Of
And
course.
so, this has really been wonderful to have this time with you. And I would like to just ask kind of one last question of what would be the one thing you would like to leave the listeners with that, that you have seen in your 32 years or more, certainly, I'm sure, one of the most important things for people to realize about anxiety or emotions, in general. And what would you think is one of the most important things you'd like to share with
Good question. The most important thing for your listeners to take away from this interview is that they always have a choice in what they do with their emotions. And if they want to repeat that to themselves or put it on a 3x5 card and post it on the mirror, I always have a choice in terms of how I respond to my emotions. If they understand that, then they can begin to practice taking a deep breath when they experience emotions, looking at what's going on, making a plan and executing that plan and carrying out and taking action on that plan. But the most important thing is to realize they do have a choice. And if they take that to heart and they understand it, then whenever an emotion comes on them and they experience, regardless of what the emotion is, whether it's anxiety or it's anger or it's guilt or it's grief, whatever it happens to be, they always have a choice. Now they are freed from the emotions taking over and controlling them to they mastering their emotions and controlling their life by using their emotion as a tool to help them understand how they interact with their environment.
Well said. That's beautiful. Wrap up for us. So, Dr. Ed Daube, the Emotions Doctor, and his latest book, Emotions as Tools, a self-help guide to controlling your life, not your feelings. And it's your website. Would you like us to share your website as well?
Yes, I would. And let me tell your listeners, I
Sure.
have a blog that I contribute to twice a month. It's called theemotionsdoctor.com, TheEmotionsDoctor.com. And I have over 100 entries on that website. In order for them, if they want to get the most out of it, they can go up to the index tab in the upper right-hand corner of the homepage, click on the index tab. It'll take them to a PDF, which they can open up. And in that PDF, I have listed for them all of my posts by category, by title, and by date. So if they're just interested in a particular topic, whether it's anxiety or how to deal with relationships or whatever it happens to be, they can go right to that post by going over to my archives and going to the particular month and pulling it right up for them. So there's a ton of useful information. There's no login. It's free. I suggest they go there and they'll find stuff they probably didn't even think they wanted to know.
That's wonderful. I really do feel like we're about free resources right now. I think there's a lot that's needed in the world. And that's really what we're all about, is sharing these kinds of solutions. I'm about Anxiety Simplified with solutions, and about how you can use your emotional support animal as one of the simplest solutions for anxiety. So same for us. You can always find us at anxietysimplified.net and Anxiety Stop. So it was great to talk with you.
Wow.
And I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Joanne, for having me.
Thank you for listening. Please support our podcast by rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Please, to show your support. And remember to use and practice a skill we shared today to feel the joys of life. Remember, you can always call us 760-485-6784 for that free 10-minute consultation where we can discuss your next step. Or you can go to our website at anxietysimplified.net for more on how to get certified for an emotional support animal today. And remember to share the love.